Warning, the following material is extremely disturbing. On Grave Matter, we try to be as accurate as possible and we collect information from many different sources. We don't condone or glorify murder, and we try to be as sensitive as possible to victims and their families while approaching a serious subject matter with a sense of humor. Listener discretion is advised.
All right, everybody. Welcome back. Episode 18 of The Grave Matter.
18?
18. Can you believe it? We are now legal. This episode can buy cigarettes. Anyways, whatever. Welcome back to episode 18 of The Grave Matter, live from Muck Duck Studios in Bertram, Texas. The show where the killers are real and the points don't matter.
I think it's different every time you say that, but I like that about you.
I try to be consistent and I fail, and that's why it's so wonderful.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's your boy Chris Lang. We got Jill Gentry.
Hey.
On the ones and twos. No, that's not really a thing. We don't have a DJ table.
I was like, I don't know what that means. So.
But you know what we do have is a wonderful, wonderful episode lined up for tonight. We have some... Actually, I don't even know who you're doing tonight. My person is super duper crooper flooper interesting.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Mine,
not so
it was
much.
a pain in the ass to research it. I don't know why I do this to myself. Like,
my killer's better than yours.
I mean, what's your body count?
Between 10 and 20.
Well, yeah. Mm-hmm. More effective anyway.
More effective indeed.
So what's new with you anyway?
Not a lot. I'm
glad we caught up.
Yep, I know, right? Not a lot. There's some bad people out there still killing people, and I am talking about it. Not a lot's going on new. This is going to be, I think, a little bit longer than I had originally anticipated.
Oh.
So I'll go ahead and start, or we can go ahead and dive into it.
Get after it. You don't have any updates on Area 51 or any of that?
Nope, they canceled it, so that is still a thing. I think what I'm going to do is look at what happens. As that date approaches, I want to look at what happens. But as for now, it's canceled. I don't have any updates. The memes are fading away. And I just, I have this twisted sense of humor where I want to see either an alien or a slaughter. I don't know. Call me crazy, whatever. Anyways, Social Security. I'm a huge, whatever. You guys know what's up. You guys know my stance on this. We're freaking mathematologists. You know what I mean? That's what it takes. Who's your killer? Who are you doing?
Her name.
Oh, it's a she.
Yes. Her name. Yours is a she?
Mine is a she too.
Yeah, I planned it that way. I just wasn't sure if I made a mistake or not. The way that you said that mine was a she.
I just didn't know because it's rare. This is our first two females. Yeah,
I did it on purpose like that.
That's fantastic.
Thanks.
Perfect.
Mine is Diana Lumbrera.
Oh, she was a princess.
What?
Princess Diana.
Lumbrera.
Spanish princess.
I don't know, man. I think I'd call her a bruja.
Oh, that means witch for all of those people that aren't from Southern Texas.
Yeah.
Mine is Vicki Dawn Jackson.
Vicky.
You know what I'm talking about? That chick with the alien friend or whatever.
Her sister.
That's not her sister. Those people are not related. She looks
I'm just saying, like, maybe her dad.
She looks like she got fucking squished sideways in a trash compactor.
Icky Vicky and what the fuck?
Yeah, Icky Vicky and what the fuck. Apparently, they've already been to Area 51.
She got her very own alien.
Mm-hmm. As a pet.
Oh, man.
A pet. I
hope she never hears this or we might have to kick her ass.
What are we going to throw a toothpick at her, watch her fall down? Nah, just kidding. I don't think anyone likes those people. So anyways... mine is Whoa Icky Vicky Dawn Jackson,
wow.
a.k.a. the Angel of Death,
a.k.a. the Alien Whisperer.
Cool. The coolest name the coolest name I've ever heard for a serial killer, the Angel of Death. I mean, to bestow that upon somebody, you have got to be something special,
That's a category of serial killers.
Well,
Angel of Death is like a serial killer that kills out of like mercy killings, hospital killings.
Okay, so this is hospital killings. It was certainly not out of mercy, though. Not even a little bit. Not even a shred of mercy.
I feel you, dog.
This is an interesting story for me because I started out really liking her. You know, I mean, not as much as, you know, like one of my favorite killers. And then by the end of it, I was like, oh my God, never mind. You're rude.
You suck, Vicki.
You're really bad at your job. Like, first of all, you had one job, Vicki. Whoa.
You did the exact opposite.
You know what I mean?
Whoa.
Jeez Louise.
How icky.
So I guess can I go first? I'm so excited to talk about her.
Get her done.
All right, let's get it. Whoa, Icky Vicki Dawn Jackson, a.k.a. the Angel of Death. This is a story of a lady whose troubles were so deep that nobody could see them. I mean, nobody. It was happening right in front of everyone, and they were like, nah, not her. No way. I mean, she might as well have been decapitating people and carrying their heads around. They would have been like, that's so weird. Like, there's no way they would have.
Whoa, Vicki.
I know.
What's going on?
What is that? That's so strange. What a weird condition to have. She was obviously a serial killer who was a nurse that murdered her patients by poisoning them.
Jerk.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a story of loneliness, a story of rejection, and ultimately a story of vengeance. There were at least 10 victims, but really at least 15, really at least 20. So they just couldn't charge her with everything. They couldn't prove it with everything. They did prove 10, though.
Okay.
This took place in Nocona, Texas, which is basically a border town of Texas and Oklahoma. This is northwest of Dallas. And it is literally right on the border of Oklahoma. The tiniest of little towns with about 3,500 people nowadays. This wasn't too long ago. This was in the year 2000.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just a super small town where everybody knows everybody.
That was nearly 20 years ago. Can you believe that?
No.
It's insane.
I'm like, yeah, this was just, you know, a few years ago. It's recent. It's 2000. This is millenniums.
Yeah.
Millennialistics. Anyways, yeah, 3,500 people now. It's a town, like I said, everyone knows everyone, and everyone knew her.
Okay.
She even killed some people she knew. She basically knew all of them. It was quite trippy. This took place if you read about it, it'll say from 2000 to 2001. It was not a year. It was December of 2000 and January of 2001. I think there was like one or two in February.
Okay.
So it was really over the course of about a month or so.
All of them?
All of them.
Jesus, Vicki.
In a hospital.
Whoa.
Didn't get caught at first. Like, what? You know what I mean? This hospital has all of freaking 18 rooms, including the bathrooms and kitchen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she's like, I'm going to go kill Mr. Johansson and then get lunch.
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
What the
Super weird.
Yeah.
It was a series of respiratory deaths. Okay, so most of the people were elderly, all except for, 2 or 3, depending on your definition of elderly. One person was like 50. But everyone else was like 80, 90, 100. One person was actually 100 years old. And then there was one girl that was 14. I think she survived, though.
Make it all the way to 100 years old to have some
I thought about that.
Bitch named Vicki kill you? Like, what the
Yeah, terrible. That's what she did. She worked at Nocona General Hospital. She worked the night shift there. It's funny. I actually looked up the hospital. It's got a 4.5 star rating. So I guess
things have improved.
Or we know where that 0.5 went. I don't know.
Yeah. Right.
But no, I think that most modern hospitals would receive a terrible rating. You know what I mean? Of like 2 stars. So it's funny that this one has a good history. Whatever.
Yeah, I grew up near a hospital that has kind of shitty history.
I mean, all of them do.
I'll talk about that on a premium episode.
We'll talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. You have amazing stories about that kind of shit, so I'll pay to hear it.
Okay.
It was a tiny little building, cute little hospital. And it was amazing that this took place there. Literally, there were 18 rooms, okay? So imagine a hallway like an elementary school. There's 9 rooms on one side, 9 rooms on the other side, and a nurse's station. That's it. Like, they said there were rarely more than 15 patients there at a time.
So somebody probably died in every one of those rooms that year.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Fucking Vicki.
I didn't think about that. That's pretty crazy. Yeah, I'm sure. And, people have died there. That might have been the case before she even started. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Now, a little bit of background. She sounds like she's a terrible, terrible person. But one of the craziest things about Vicki is that she was regarded as a fantastic nurse. She was exemplary. She was always on time. These are some of the words used to describe her: polite, sweet, well-educated, enthusiastic, caring, patient, dedicated. The director of nursing said she was an absolute example of perfection. I read a wonderful article by Skip Hollandsworth, who is a fantastic writer for Texas Monthly and does a lot of stories on these killers. And he actually met with her and interviewed her, which is pretty incredible. Shouts out to Skip. I love his work. He's an incredible writer. Check his articles out for Texas Monthly. They're fantastic. It's by far the best research you'll ever get, you know. Plus, he interviewed her like 4 times. So that's incredible. The way that she did this was she would cause death by temporarily paralyzing patients' respiratory system by injecting them with something called mivacurium chloride, okay? Which is a temporary I'm not a doctor, okay? All right? You know what I freaking look like? A health pathologist? It was a temporary neuromuscular blocker. There, I got it out. It's typically used for anesthesia, or if they're trying to ventilate somebody, they'll give you this. It's temporary, right? For like tracheal intubation, it'll kind of stop them from moving. They can insert it, and then as the oxygen starts flowing, it wears off. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
Because as long as it's no more than like a minute or so, you're fine, right?
Right. So it's to stop like muscle contractions whenever they're trying to intubate somebody.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Okay.
Or for, mechanical ventilation. There's some procedures in anesthesia where they use it, but it's always a temporary thing where you're hooked up to oxygen. It's extremely dangerous, right?
Right.
I even wrote scary with an arrow pointing to it, which is kind of childish, but whatever.
See some of the crap I wrote on my notes.
Speaking of childish, let's go to her childhood, and we'll take it all the way back. Let's take a step back to her childhood. She was born February 13th. It was not Friday the 13th. That would have been really cool as a Sunday. In Indiana. She moved to Texas when she was very, very young. It didn't say when, but it was definitely at the time of her being, I would say, probably 3 or 4 years old. She was very young. She was the oldest of 2 children. She had a little brother with severe asthma. Okay. And I think that kind of started her, right? You know what I'm saying? Weird. Talk about respiratory issues. Her dad was a mechanic, and her mom was a cook at the local nursing home.
Huh.
Interesting. This sparked, I think that initially, between her brother and her mom working there, it sparked her interest in medicine. And the way that Skip worded it in his article was that she wanted to be a Florence Nightingale from the moment she was born. She was like born to be a nurse.
Huh.
Well, or so we thought. You know what I mean? But she had a deep interest in medicine, and she actually, while she was in high school, she was interested in the health classes and everything, but she got a job at the nursing home in the laundry room with her mom. So her mom was a cook, and she was, but they kind of worked together, and she would, kind of jump into a different scope and help out a little bit. And then she was a great student. She wound up going to college for it. And then as she was in college, so after she graduated high school, she was promoted to a nurse's aide at the home. And she worked as a nurse's aide as she went to college for nursing, right? And then after she graduated college at some point, she eventually got a job at the hospital. Her personal life, though, as dedicated as she was to this profession, her personal life was pretty tumultuous. As far as like relationships, she could not keep a man to save her life. She did not have a lot of friends. There was a section that talked about how she would go to like the car wash, small town, like hang out, like that. All the kids would hang out in the parking lot there. And she was always seen like by herself, like, which is the saddest thing in the world. Like,
kind of defeats the purpose, doesn't it? Like, if you're going to be by yourself, why not just be by yourself at home? You're going to find out this chick is absolutely insane. There is no logic to what she does. So it makes sense that it doesn't make sense. Does that make sense? Makes sense, yeah.
Her personal life was tough, no friends, no boyfriends, nobody really talked to her. She got married right after high school it was like one dude that like walked into a gas station and called her pretty, and she like latched onto him. Wow. And they got married, and everyone was like, what the hell? And it lasted like a year, you know, and then she got divorced. And then she got married, and then she got divorced, and then she got married, and then she got divorced, and then she got married, and then she got divorced.
God damn.
4 times by the time she was 33.
So third time is not always a charm.
Third time's not always a charm. Not in this case.
Okay.
In one of the more serious marriages, she did have 2 children, and she had lost custody of them in 2000, which I found interesting because I said, oh, well, that's a, you know, maybe that's the motive, right? Because there was so much that said, oh, well, we don't know the motive. We don't know why she would do this. Mm-hmm. And then as I kind of dove into the story, I kind of discovered more, I think, why. But I don't think it was because of that, because that was an ongoing issue at the time. I think it partially had to do with that, but that wasn't a finalized thing yet. As she started killing before she lost her children, basically. Which makes you think, you know what I mean?
Well, they say like the best way to get away with murder is not have a motive.
Interesting. So, and it makes me think, it's a mom in Texas in the year 2000. That's a nurse with a great job. How did she lose both of her kids? Like, what judge, you know, like that's not an easy thing to do in Texas, right? Without being, you know, a drug addict or something serious going on. So I was very curious as to why that happened, and I couldn't find a lot of information on it. But, you know, like I said, she started killing before completely losing custody. I know that she was acting very strangely, and she was completely overwhelmed, right? She had 2 young kids. Her parents were helping take care of the kids while she went to work, but then her grandparent got sick in Indiana, and her parents moved back to Indiana to take care of Grandpa. And so then she had the kids. Her man that she lived with also worked at the hospital, right? He worked days, she worked nights. But she was also the housewife. You know, she did all the cooking, she did all the cleaning. She also went to school at the time to try and further her nursing career. Her whole thing was, she was a nurse's aide, and then like an LVN, and then she was trying to be an RN. And she worked nights, so she was completely spread thin. People said she started getting bags under her eyes, and she wasn't sleeping, and she would kind of like zone out for a little while.
It sounds almost like she runs a podcast.
Yeah, no kidding. Right. Seriously. I found the funniest sentence in my research. This is the most pointless sentence I've ever heard, to the point where I had to write it down. Ready? Mm-hmm. I can't even say this with a straight face. During her time as a serial killer, she was known for murdering her victims. What the fuck? Like,
you know, somebody was looking at a word count.
When you're trying to write an essay in high school. You know what I mean?
You spell the date out.
Right. 19.
Put my middle name up in this shit just in case.
You know what I mean? Oh wow. My gosh, I thought that was ridiculous.
Wow. When she was eating food, she was ingesting calories.
That was like, wow, that was a dumb sentence.
Is this your writer, man?
Accurate as no.
I'm about to say, man.
No, it was like killer.cloud or something like that. I don't know. It was funny though. And honestly, the rest of it was great information. There's like that one sentence. I was like, why did somebody, you know, whatever.
Yeah, that's weird.
So her first kill was December 11th of the year 2000. Her last kill was February 18th of 2001. So everything took place within that short amount of time, right around Christmas and New Year's.
Wow. Whoa, Vicki, calm down.
Yeah, and you know,
how did she expect to get away with that? I mean, she got away with it for longer than she should have.
I don't know.
But...
I don't know if she did expect to get away with it. I don't even know if she believes that she did it. Like, this chick is batshit crazy.
Okay. You don't even know if she believes she did it. That's great.
It's like she'd sit
her down and be like, look, Vicki, during the time you were a serial killer, you were murdering people and you were known for it. So right? Don't try to deny it now.
You know, because Skip had interviewed her several times, and she like maintained her innocence even after she pleaded no contest and got life in prison. So what? You know what I mean? Even the lawyers were like, I don't know, dude, just like let her do her thing, I guess. Let's get her out of here. They talked about her knowing everyone that was killed in some way, shape, or form, but it wasn't immediately obvious. Her selection did seem kind of random at first, but it was opportunistic. So if there was an available time to do it, she would do it. And as the events unfolded years and years later, they discovered, wait a minute, that's why. Wait a minute, that person did that. Right? And we'll talk about that a little bit later.
It's like minor transgressions.
Yes. The victims ranged from an acquaintance her age that she would go to. There was like a little bar, like, you know, kind of Dallas nightclub type little country spot. And there was a really pretty girl there. And she wasn't the prettiest girl. She was just kind of like, she was described as the girl you passed in the hallways. She wasn't like ugly. She was just like somebody that was a very good student. Like nobody really paid attention to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I saw a picture of her after she was in prison, but I don't know how long she was in prison.
She gained a lot of weight in prison.
Okay, well then it must have been late in her stay.
It was a stated, it was a stated fact.
Okay. What did she... All right, never mind.
So the victims ranged from an acquaintance that she knew from the nightclub to neighbors that she had grown up with to her husband's grandpa, and even a high school student that went to school with her kids. The husband's grandpa was crazy because she even went to the funeral and brought potato salad, which made everybody very sick after they realized what had happened. You know what I mean?
This bitch had the nerve to show up with potato salad.
Yeah,
not macaroni salad, but potato.
The town was blown away. Honestly, nobody could believe it. There was a really cool, like a quote that somebody had said, and she said, a feather could have knocked us over. Like, we were so, you know what I mean? It was like an old lady, old Texas grandma. She's like, a feather could have knocked us over. I was like, wow, that's a good saying.
I've heard that a million times.
I have not. As we...
See, I'm smart.
and kind of like what I was saying, as we take a look back at her personal issues, you kind of see this, what had happened, right? Everyone had said, oh, she snapped. And at first I thought, well, I don't think she snapped. I think she kind of sank into it. Like it gradually wore on her until she did kind of have a moment. And after researching everything, I think it was both. I think she gradually got worse and worse until she just couldn't take it anymore. I think she found the feeling of the first murder to be such a release, just to experience some kind of emotion, some kind of feeling after such a blah life.
Or control over anything.
Maybe that, you know what I mean? But after the first one, everything else happened very quickly. A conversation with her counselor revealed how she was deeply, deeply depressed and how she felt unloved and had these increasing mood swings with fits of rage that nobody knew about at the time. She was like the sweetest country girl you would have never guessed, you know what I mean? She went to like Dairy Queen every day before work in her nurse's outfit and got like her basket of tacos. She was a creature of habit for sure. Same Dairy Queen sat in like the same booth in the back. Even after she was being investigated for the killings, she still went to Dairy Queen. It was like, hi everyone, and everyone was like, get the fuck out of here.
Dairy Queen tacos slam. They're like the only food I'll eat there.
Really? Mm-hmm. Interesting. Guess you guys have something in common.
Yeah, their steak fingers or whatever they are gross me out.
Really?
It's so nasty. It's like a battered dog turd. I can't do it.
A battered dog turd?
Can't do it. I don't like any of their food, but the tacos are good.
Oh, man. Well, yeah, she was a creature of habit, and she loved the tacos. So she got like the tacos, and she got a like a side salad to go with it. I don't know. Because that's necessary information.
Just for appearances.
You know what I mean? Right? That's
my side is a blizzard. Have one of those peanut butter parfaits. Thank you.
Peanut butter? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. I thought you just said it wrong.
Nope.
Well, touche. Let's talk about the victims. Let's fast forward a little bit.
Get off these tacos.
You know what I mean? Like I said, the first one was December 11th of the year 2000. Really just an incredible moment. This was Donnie Jennings, and she was 100 years old. 100. She was married to one of the founders of the town, basically, one of the founding families. And apparently she was a crab apple. Okay? She liked to bite and spit and things like that. And she had family that would come visit. She had 2 daughters that would come visit her. She said that the daughters would never pay her any attention. It was like they were looking right through her. And she would walk in and check her medicine and blah, 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 blah. And she was like, yeah, just nobody paid attention to me.
So she's just like a fixture in the room.
Mm-hmm. You know, Donnie, Miss Jennings was very similar in a sense that she was very prissy and crabapple-y when she didn't get what she wanted. Now, so the way that it went down is she was in there probably around midnight or something, and she put this stuff in her IV, at which point it took, you know, it was very quickly, maybe 10, 15 seconds before she started kind of choking, having trouble breathing, chest pain. She started choking. She turned blue and started foaming at the mouth, and she left the room, left her there to die. Nurse came in, and an RN came in at like 1:45 a.m., found her dead. And they were like, well, she was 100, you know what I mean? Like, I guess it happened.
I mean, like, the meaner they are, the older they live, so it sounds like she could have been like 115.
115.
So I'd have been suspicious, like,
yeah.
The mean ones live forever.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
The good die young.
Mm-hmm. So that was December 11th, the year 2000. December 20th, just a few days later, she walks into another room of 87-year-old LG Hudson and performs the same thing. 20 minutes later, she goes into another patient's room, 62-year-old Sanford Mitchell, and kills him. 20 minutes later.
They're like, shit, everybody's catching the die around here.
Yeah. There's actually some commentary about that. 20 minutes later, you know?
Yeah, it's ballsy.
That was December 20th. 4 days later, December 24th, 50-year-old Barbara Altberry. Same thing. Met her fate. 3 hours later, walks into another room and does it again. On Christmas Eve, 87-year-old Boyd Bunnett, who was in the hospital for being confused. And the other one was in for being back pain. None of these people were in there.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you. A 50-year-old dies of like...
yeah. Mm-hmm. Respiratory failure. None of these people had respiratory issues.
She was in there for a back problem?
Yeah.
And everybody was just like, bummer. Like,
yeah. That's exactly what happened.
That's insanity.
So
she wasn't even picky about who she chose. Like,
nope. Get this. It gets
fucking
crazy.
14-year-old in there for menstrual cramps and she died, or what? I don't understand how that happens.
I don't remember. Maybe a broken leg or something.
Okay.
But yeah, nobody was in there for respiratory. Actually, one person was in there for pneumonia. But other than that, nobody in there had a respiratory issues. Nobody was there for respiratory issues, and nobody had a history of respiratory issues. And they, we'll talk about that in a minute. But 5 days later, December 29th, 80-year-old James Gore, respiratory failure, and 79-year-old Gertie Matthews, 7 hours later, at the end of the shift. One at the beginning, one at the end of shift. Okay, wow. So we are now...
What is that, like 2 weeks?
2 weeks or so. And that is 7 victims in 2 weeks at the same hospital with one hallway. Everybody's dying of respiratory failure. And
I would have not come to work. I'd have been like, there's some shit falling out of the ceiling that's killing people. Like, no fucking way. There's asbestos. I don't care.
Right? And look at my notes. How the fuck was nobody suspicious?
That is incredible.
How the fuck is nobody suspicious? How is everyone like, what's going on? You know what I mean?
I would have literally been like, is there some kind of cat demon smothering people in their sleep? Or, you know,
seriously,
anything.
Go into January. The first 8 days of January, 5 more. Okay? 5 more people.
In 8 days.
We're at 13 people in like 3 weeks.
Whoa, Vicki, what the fuck?
The chief of staff. So at this point, the chief of staff and the CEO of the hospital were talking. And they had said they thought it was a bad luck streak. It was like an abnormally cold winter, and they were all like 100 years old. You know what I mean? So he was like, "Oh, that's shitty luck."
I'm like, did y'all get your diplomas out of a fucking Cracker Jack box or like a cereal
Chief
box?
of staff was an MD, and his brother was a leading physician there too at the hospital.
I mean, your dad would have been like, "Yo."
Yeah,
you know
I mean, yeah, so
immediately.
I would have. So would you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, that being said, there were a couple nurses in there that were like, hold the fuck up. You know what I mean? Like some regular people, but they had no idea. They couldn't prove anything. They couldn't figure anything out.
Small town nurses will gossip like a motherfucker anyway.
Yep. Mm-hmm. But they were like, they didn't know what was happening. You know what I mean? They started killing. She worked on night crew, by the way. So it was like 7 to 7 or some shit. You know what I mean?
The witching hour. That's awful, though.
They started calling it the killing shift. Without knowing. You know what I mean?
How could you not know? I don't understand.
I don't know. So part of me is like, as a CEO and chief of staff just trying to cover their own ass, like, how would you be so incompetent? Right?
Yeah.
And this hospital has 4.5 stars. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? They're like, yeah, you have like a 20% chance of living here. Like, this is fantastic.
Nah. Mm-mm. Nah.
So at this point, she becomes overly fucking confident. She's like, killed 13 people. You know what I mean? And 12 people. Go, what am I, a mathematologist? What is this? She's killed 12 people at this point, and she's overly fucking confident. To the point where she walks into a room and kills a guy while his wife is sitting right next to him.
I thought you were going to say that.
Jimmy Ray Walker. I'm sorry, Jimmy Ray Holder. Jimmy Ray Walker sounds cool, though. Mm-hmm. Jimmy Ray needed a motherfucking Walker, let me tell you.
Sounds like an alcoholic drink. I think I'm thinking
Jimmy
of
Ray Walker.
Johnny Walker Red.
Oh, that's probably what it is. Yeah, so, you know, all these people, you know, she didn't give a shit at this point. She was like, giving you your pain meds, and then...
She's like, wow, I'm so insignificant. I can kill the whole fucking building full of people and nobody will notice.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's what it was, right? The next person that she killed didn't work. It was a 95-year-old named Oma Weiler.
Is that a chick? Oma?
Yeah.
That's a... Okay.
It was like an old grandma.
Sounds German.
Yeah, probably.
She sounds tough as shit.
Oma Weiler. Well, she was. She survived the first one.
The first one?
Yeah.
So she got a second dose?
She sure did.
That sucks.
The first time the nurses resuscitated her, and they were like, wow, we don't know what happened. 4 days later, she walked in and did it again. Killed her.
Wow. She had beef
The
with
hospital didn't notice, quote unquote, but the whole fucking town did. You know? The guy that writes obituaries was like, Jesus, this has been... What a busy month. You know what I mean?
Busy for me.
The flower shop was like sold out. And
holy shit, that's so creepy.
The flower shop was sold out. Dairy Queen always... They're like the only restaurant in town at the time, right? They're actually the number one selling Dairy Queen in the state of Texas because that's the only choice people had for food there. So,
wow.
The funeral homes were doing so well in business that they considered buying new hearse for both funeral homes.
It's like the freaking, what do you call it? The excavator or what do you call that shit? The equipment? I can never remember names of things when I do this.
No, I know. What do you...
Where they dig the graves with.
Oh, yeah. That's an excavator. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I was right?
Yeah.
Well, I'll be damned.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it kept running out of gas and shit, needing repairs.
Yeah. It was quite busy, right? Dairy Queen would supply the funerals with, like, paper cups and napkins and shit, and they were running out of paper cups and stuff.
So they were standing around eating off of Dairy Queen plates and shit?
Yes.
That's hilarious. I'm sorry about all the dead people.
I thought that too. I'm like, what a weird funeral.
That is some country ass shit right there.
That is some country ass shit. Like I said, a couple of the nurses found it suspicious, but didn't really follow up on anything. They had nothing to go off of. They didn't want to like accuse somebody of murder. If the chief of staff is the doctor and he's like, it's fine, don't worry about it. Da 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 da. So January 11th, once again, two more. 82-year-old J.T. Nichols and 78-year-old John Williams, both killed.
Somebody higher up is going like, this place was getting a bit crowded anyway. The Dairy Queen line was getting too fucking long. I'm not in any kind of hurry to stop this.
I don't know. I don't know what happened. So, January 30th, two more. Well, one more. She tries to do two more. 82-year-old Orville Moore, who didn't make it, and 14-year-old Lydia, Weathered Wheathead. I don't know. I'm going to say it's probably not Wheathead, but she survived, right? And then a couple days later, there was 46-year-old Donna Kernut and 35-year-old Lisa Pelkey, whatever. She was the one that was the friend. She was like an acquaintance that was at the nightclub with her all the time. She was like one of the prettiest girls in town, right? Mm-hmm. She was in there for a broken leg. She survived, and she was interviewed, and she was like, I don't even remember that lady.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, she was. And then
that's the burn of all burns. Like,
yeah.
Knew her my whole life. She tried to kill me. I don't even know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, that's so fucked up.
You know, I'm like, well, all right.
That one hurt Vicki real deep.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And then finally, the last one officially was 91-year-old E.E. Jackson. Went by the name of Preacher. Okay,
that's cool as hell.
That is cool as hell. Yeah. So
if I was an old Southern man, I'd want to be known as Preacher.
For real, right? Especially if you weren't one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Anyways, Texas thing. That was her husband's grandpa. and she done murked him. Straight muck duck.
She had beef with that one, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. The crazy thing is, at this point, they had suspected her. Okay? They fucking suspected her, man.
Okay.
A pharmacy tech had noticed missing vials of the drug and went to the chief of staff and he was like, hey, is this important? And they were like, well, fucking yes. Immediately called the FBI, right? And the Texas Rangers who
Holy
came
shit.
in. They basically set up hidden cameras to try and catch her, right?
That seems risky. Like stealing the
I
medicine,
feel-
not killing the people, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like I mean, it didn't work, right? They set up the hidden cameras. She was never caught. They had like a stash of it, and they were like, all right, wait. And they had like the camera focused on it. I don't know if someone told her, because they did inform a couple people in the hospital. I don't know. Everyone thought like if there was one person that's innocent, it's Vicki. You know what I mean? She
Gossiping ass small towns. Everybody was
had her
talking about
kid-
that shit.
I'm-
Guaranteed.
Yep. Her fucking kids would come up to the hospital and like draw pictures for the patients. You know what I mean? Like there's no way it's her. There's no fucking way. Anybody but her.
They're like, get well soon or not.
But when they noticed the vials were missing, they started an investigation and they said, holy shit, Vicki is the last person in the room with all these people. Nearly all of these people. Sometimes it wasn't recorded. It was, in fact, all of them, by
Yeah.
the way. But yeah, they knew that Vicki was the last nurse in the room, but also the best nurse in town. So they were like, no, there's no fucking way. You know what I mean? They didn't catch her with a hidden camera. They actually threw her a birthday party at the hospital, and it was pretty intense. She just put on the perfect show. You know, she was like, "Thank you guys so much. I'm so humbled." Blah 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 blah. When they figured out that she was the last person in most of the rooms, the FBI went. They didn't have a warrant to search her house, but they looked around her house, and in the trash can, they found a discarded syringe with the drug in it.
Why would she have that at her house? I guess
Well,
she
that's
just
what
couldn't
the-
dispose of it at the hospital.
Funny question. That's exactly what the FBI asked. Right? They were like, so, about that. She was like, I don't know. And her boyfriend was like, I don't know. So she was like a nurse and he was like an aide. So
Okay.
they knew that it wasn't him because he didn't have access to the medication at all.
All right.
And she did. The hospital fired them both. They were like, she's probably guilty. He's too
A
close.
dumbass.
Yeah, they said it was in the best interest of the hospital to let them both go, obviously. But they had no concrete evidence that she was actually guilty, right? So they came up with a plan. They met for, I don't know, it took them like a year or something.
Meanwhile, nobody's fucking dying.
Nobody's dying anymore of respiratory diseases, respiratory failure, whatever. What am I, a healthologist? They decided to start a process to exhume all of the bodies that had died from respiratory failure to see if they could find traces of the drug in their system.
That bulldozer is screwed now.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Excavator.
They ain't got no gas in it. Right. It took them forever to set it up, though. You know what I mean? They did start in like June of 2001. It was a few months later.
They have to get like next of kin's permission and all kinds of shit.
They
like
did,
that.
right? It took a year to do all of it. So they started in June of 2001, and in July of 2002, she was arrested. She had gone to work at like a nursing home in a neighboring town who, quote unquote, obviously did not call her references. And she was fired 2 weeks later under
Would not
suspicion of
hire
stealing.
again.
Yeah, I know. Would not hire again. 10 out of 10. Would not hire again. She was arrested working at a grocery store deli because she was fired 2 weeks into the nursing home job for stealing medication. Huh. Scoobity whoop. Figures. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What you gonna do with all that
Mm-hmm.
medication?
So she was working at a grocery store deli, and everyone at the grocery store also loved her.
Well, there's a lot. It's a lot different than
Yeah.
like, expecting somebody to take care of your life, as opposed to like,
Right? She's like injecting the meats.
I want
We
a
got the
quarter
meats.
pound of salami. That's
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
it's a little harder to kill you that way.
I don't know. She probably
I mean,
would have figured
clogged
it out.
arteries, but
Yeah. It's a slow
the
death.
meat sweats.
Right? The crazy thing is that she maintained her innocence the entire time. It's fucking crazy. She got arrested. She maintained her innocence the entire time. She had a cellmate, right? And her lawyer sent her a packet of evidence to review. They're going to use this against you in the trial. And this is like the one thing that kind of got her caught up, other than the fact that, she was guilty. Yeah, so she was going over the evidence, and it was like pictures and stories of the autopsies and the families, and her cellmate was like, wow, that's so sad for those families. And she turned to her cellmate and she was like, screw those fucking families.
Yo.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, Vicki, what's with the hostility?
You know what I mean, right? It took 3 or 4 years for them to build the case, right? So it took a year. So she stopped in February of 2001. June of 2001, they got the approval to do the...
It just baffles me. It's like the detectives are like, let's break out my little detective kit.
Yep.
With their little...
My little spy kit.
Yeah, with the little...
magnifying glass.
That's the one.
Jesus.
Why are the words not happening? I don't understand.
That's a pretty simple one. I'm not gonna lie.
No. I mean...
Pull out the look bigger.
Yeah. The ant burner.
The ant burner, right?
It's 11 o'clock at night. My brain stopped functioning about 4.5 hours ago. So,
well, she maintained her innocence the whole time, but the whole cellmate thing like threw everybody off. Right? It took 3 or 4 years to build up the trial. It was, June of 2001 where they approved the exhumers, right?
Exhumations.
That sounds right. That sounds fantastic. Anyways,
Exhumations.
and then it was another year before they had finished and arrested her eventually. And then after that, she was in jail waiting for them to build the case, and that took 3 or 4 years. So at this point, it's like 2005. You know what I mean? Like the war's like well in full swing. This happened before 9/11. You know what I mean? Mm. Out of the blue, she walks up to the judge in one of the hearings, and she was like, "I'd like to plead no contest." Which is, it's not guilty or innocent. You just accept the punishment for the crime, but you're not found guilty. Mm. And the judge was like, "What?" And the lawyer was like, "What?" And she was like, "Yeah, I'd like to plead no contest." And so he was like, "Okay, well, you got life in prison." And she was like, "All right." And then went to jail. And, like, that was it. Like,
what the hell?
They said that, it really shined some light on her mental capacity. Because even now, she still maintains her innocence. And when Skip interviewed her a bunch of times, she was like, "Oh, I can never do that." And she's very sweet, very polite, signing letters respectfully, And she was like, "Oh, was your trip to the prison okay? You were running late and I was worried that you might have got hurt on the road." And, just like super weird.
Yeah.
And she's like, "I could have never hurt somebody like that. My whole life was dedicated to saving people and I loved everyone." And they're like, "We know it was you. Like, this isn't a question anymore. Like, what? Like, she's obviously lost her mind, right?" Mm-hmm. And it was apparently very important to her that she was not found guilty.
So
she was like,
she had to take the punishment.
Yeah, it was just like, well, I wasn't found guilty, so that's okay to me. And they're like, "Okay, well, you're still in prison for life." She's still in prison. She's at the Christina Melton Crane Unit in Gatesville, Texas, and she will spend the rest of her life there, and that's where she'll take her last breath.
That is super strange.
Isn't that the weirdest shit ever? And by the end of it, I was like, what? Like, this chick is way more twisted than anybody thought. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You would think she'd be like, "No, fuck those people." Like, once she, or whatever. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. She's like, screw them. And then I could never hurt anybody. Like,
yeah. Super weird.
It's like super empathetic and super like psychotic.
Yeah. Very psychotic. Very, 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 very psychotic.
It's crazy.
Yeah. It was very weird. After they started doing more research, they realized she had a connection to all these people. You know what I mean? Her husband's grandpa was like the finale. There was like the 100-year-old lady that her daughters were mean to her. There were 2 other people whose kids were rude to her when she was growing up and always made fun of her. The 14-year-old had rejected her son on a date. There was all sorts of like little things that added up. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And it was kind of tough because in one of those small towns, you're like, well, yeah, everyone knows everyone. You know what I mean? It's not weird that she knew them, but it was weird when they figured out how and why.
Right.
So there she remains, and there she will rot. But I thought that was a super interesting story, and I loved researching it. I thought it was incredible.
Good, I'm glad.
Whoa, Vicki, slow the fuck down.
Yeah, she was super ambitious and everything.
Yeah. I thought it was an interesting fact that she had exactly 25 nurse uniforms in her closet, well pressed, maintained, ready to go at all times.
Yeah, that's weird.
Super strange.
I'm the type that has like 4 uniforms in a laundry basket, and I'm like, which one can I throw in the dryer to get the wrinkles out? That's this one.
For real, though. I'm the same way. I don't know how anyone would do that. I don't even know how you'd afford 25. Whatever.
Whatever.
She gon' be dead.
Vicki.
Well, fuck it. Let's go ahead and dive into your lady. I was going to say your guy.
So my chick is Diana Lumbrera. She was born in Friona, Texas, in November 21st, 1958.
1955.
I feel like I've had a stroke or something. She was one of 7 children, which I thought was really interesting, so I circled it.
Okay.
I'll come back to that.
All right.
So this research was kind of like super all over the place.
That's right. You said there was like a lot of conflicting information, right?
Big time.
Like big differences. Like,
big details. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll get into that later because I don't want to ruin the surprise. But yeah, I'm sitting there at the computer and I've got like my son's iPad and my freaking phone and the computer screen. And I'm looking at 3 different stories from 3 different newspapers.
Maps on the wall.
That
like
are
drawing.
all so god dang different.
Interesting.
I was pissed.
That's frustrating, yeah.
Oh, I was super annoyed. Especially because I'd already done like 3.5 hours of research
Just
on this.
making my own fucking story.
Yeah. I had already done like 3.5 hours of research, and then I came to this impasse where there was like this bullshit I couldn't wade through, and I was like, I would have picked somebody different if I'd known that was gonna suck this bad. So I'm just gonna go with it, okay? Try to follow me here.
Will do. Tracking.
So Diana, at age 13, it was in 1971, she faked an illness to get out of school. She took it a step further and eventually dropped out of school because of this fake illness. They didn't say what it was. Yeah. So she dropped out of school at 13 and never went back.
Some motherfucking dedication.
No shit. At 14 years old, she married. Yep, that's right. She married a man named Rodolfo Carrillo.
Where is this though?
It's Texas. It's all
in
over
Texas. Okay, so
Friona,
that's
Bovina,
weird.
Like all these places I've never heard of in Texas.
Yeah.
Texas is freaking massive though, so I'm not surprised.
I don't think we hear a new town every time we do a story.
Yeah. So the following year, after she dropped out of school, at 14, she married Rodolfo Carrillo, and they moved to Bovina, Texas.
That's weird.
Yeah, that marriage did not last very long at all.
Oh, you think?
It was because Rodolfo, he noticed like she was super flirtatious, and
Because she was 14.
it pissed him off, and so he left her.
How old was he though?
18.
Oh, okay. So I don't know why I thought he was like 45, and it was like super weird. I mean, it's still super weird.
Yeah. So he left her in 1974, and shortly after that, she started dating a man named Lionel Garza. And at 16 years old, she gave birth to their first child, Melissa. Melissa was born March 14th, 1975. Within the next year and a half, she gave birth to their second daughter, Joanna.
Okay. Keeping those A's going.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A year and a half later, she gave birth to their second daughter, Joanna. Joanna was born March of 76.
Okay.
So Joanna, the second daughter, winds up being rushed to the hospital by her mother at 3 months old. She died before she got to the hospital.
Oh, shit.
They ruled the cause of death as accidental. They said that she had, it was like natural causes, I guess, what you would technically call it.
Mm-hmm.
They said she had some kind of convulsive disorder and that she aspirated her stomach contents and suffocated. So like she vomited and then and then like breathed it in.
Okay. So she was poisoned. Got it.
But they blamed it on a convulsive disorder.
Jeez, who was in the hospital room? Vicki?
Right. When her daughter died, she was 18 years old. That was her first child that died.
Wow. She was 18 years old. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, February 19th of 1977, Diana marries Lionel, her boyfriend.
Okay. Wow.
Right. 9 months after their marriage, she gives birth to their first son, Luis Garza. He was born in Clovis, New Mexico. I don't know why they moved from Texas, but they did.
Yeah.
So, at 2.5 months, Luis Garza was pronounced dead. She brought him to the hospital. He was dead before they got there again.
Wow.
His death was ruled undetermined. Later that same year,
And they're in a new state now.
Yeah.
So there's probably not like a cross reference to the first death, right?
Right.
Okay.
And she still has her older daughter. Her first daughter still alive.
Mm-hmm.
So later that same year in October, Diana decided that she'd better go ahead and let go of her firstborn.
Jesus.
So Melissa dies at 3 years old. She was a much hardier child than the others, obviously, because they were infants. But
Right.
Nonetheless, she arrived at Palmer County Hospital with her lifeless daughter's body, and hospital staff was unable to revive her.
Wow.
They determined her cause of death to be asphyxia due to aspiration of stomach contents. Pretty much the same as her other kid.
Red flag, red flag, red flag.
Mm-hmm. So this did not stop Diana. She went ahead and had another daughter about 14 months later.
What the hell?
Yep. She was 21 years old at this point, and she gave birth to a healthy baby girl she named Melinda Ann. She was born in Muleshoe, Texas.
I'm sorry, what?
Muleshoe.
Of course she was. Of course.
Have you ever heard of that?
No, hell no. It's ridiculous. What a dumb name for a town.
We go camping in Muleshoe Bend, but...
If I was the mayor of Muleshoe, I'd be pissed.
Well, did you prefer horseshoe?
Yes,
Would that make it
I
better?
fucking would. A horse is infinitely better than a mule.
Horse is part mule, I think. Or vice
What?
versa. Mule is part horse.
Yeah.
And donkey, right?
Yeah, donkey shoe would be pretty embarrassing as well.
I mean, I guess it's better than, like, guy's shoe.
Right? Duck butter.
Size 13 shoe. Duck butter.
Duck butter, Texas. Ugh.
So, from what I read, she died of heart failure. That's what they said. They said that she had some kind of congenital heart disease or defect when she was born and that she died of heart failure.
Okay.
That's what I read from one source, but none of the others.
Okay. What did the other sources say?
They didn't have any kind of explanation.
Okay.
This was so messed up. Like, this whole thing, it's just gonna have to, I'm gonna paint you a picture and you're just gonna have to walk through that shit.
Yeah,
and
please
figure it
do.
out.
No, please do. I want to hear all of it, whether it doesn't necessarily have to be the truth. I just want to hear what everyone said. No, seriously.
Okay.
We should be open to different interpretations. We weren't there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wasn't there. I don't know about you. I don't know what I'm saying.
I mean, I wasn't alive yet.
I ain't trying to get
so you
Scooby
weren't.
whooped in Muleshoe, Texas. You know what I mean?
So, on October 8th of 1980, Diana took... Okay, get this shit.
Okay.
Diana took her cousin's daughter, 6-week-old Erica Lenore Ailman, out for a drive.
Oh.
Why? You have your own children.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some of them. Drive them. Like, and what the fuck's her cousin thinking? Like, I'm gonna let her babysit. Like,
Right? Like,
I'm sorry, but you don't have the greatest track record with that shit.
You know
I
what I'm
think maybe
saying?
no.
yeah, even after one, I'd be like,
Where the fuck is you going?
Yeah.
Where does my 6-week-old have to go?
Right.
Like, I don't even remember if I took Jack out of the house at 6 weeks old. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, it's kind of early.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, back to the story.
I digress.
13 minutes after she left with that baby, she showed up at West Plains Medical Hospital in Muleshoe, where she was pronounced dead. The baby was dead. Just to clarify.
Yeah.
Yeah, the baby carried her in and said, "Those lady's dead."
Can someone help me? This is heavy. This is ridiculous.
So this bitch couldn't stop killing children. She didn't care that they weren't hers either.
This was her sister's kid?
It was her.
I mean, her cousin's
her cousin's kid. And I'm like, why didn't you just leave her at her house? Like,
Right.
why?
Obviously, yeah.
That's super. You know what I mean? Like, it's
That's not cool at all. I'm not having a good time at all.
right. Well, I mean, so if you think about postpartum depression and
Mm-hmm.
like parents snapping and losing their shit and killing their kids, this wasn't her kid. Like,
Yeah.
at least that makes a little minute
Well,
amount of
it
sense.
paints a picture of what her mental state was, in my opinion. What did her cousin do?
Supported her. None of her family believes that she has anything to do with any of this shit. So, but Lionel was like, "I'm getting the fuck out of here." He left. He divorced her. Like, after that death, he was like, fishy shit. I don't
Yeah.
know, man. The medical records on Erica's death, nobody can find them. Gone. Like a fart in the wind.
What?
There are no existing medical records for her death or...
That's not weird.
Right? So, we're going to go ahead to when this horror of a human being was 24 years old.
Mm-hmm.
She went ahead and killed her 3-year-old daughter, Melinda. She was pronounced dead at her home in Freona, Texas, and the cause of death was attributed to heart disease.
Okay. Heart failure.
Fair to talk about that one?
Yeah.
No, I didn't. Talk about Melissa. This is Melinda.
You said that the 3-year-old died of heart thing, but it was only one source, and then everything else was
right. This is the next one. This is Melinda. That was Melissa.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
Exactly.
Jesus.
So, and
who's next? Matilda? It's fucking ridiculous.
In August 17th of 1982, she killed 3-year-old. Some say 3, some say 2. Melinda Lumbrera, her daughter.
What is this? What is this? 5? 4 or 5 she's on?
I think 5. So she was pronounced dead at her home. She never made it to the hospital, and they contributed that to congenital heart disease.
Okay.
So in 82, her and her husband's divorce becomes finalized.
Okay.
And then in October of 83, she gives birth to another child. A son she names Christopher Daniel Marcos.
Damn.
Yeah. So, as you can tell, there's a lot of information. There's a lot of different names and birthdays and things like that.
Uh-huh.
But to top it off, there's also like 3 or 4 different fathers of these kids. So their last names differ, and that helped her cover her tracks a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
Plus, she lived in all different kinds of states and different cities. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I mean, it's a mess. So bear with me. It's like, I feel like this is a trend now. Like, I keep picking the most complicated shit to talk about, and then I get confused. But we're going to power through this shit together. So she gave birth to her son, Christopher Daniel Marcos, in Clovis, New Mexico, October 10th of 1983. Is that your birthday?
No.
Tracy's birthday? Anywho. So, in March of 84, she has an abortion.
Weird.
Yeah. And she's given birth control pills. 20 days later, after her abortion, she kills Christopher. He's 5.5 months old, according to this, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
He died in her home, and she took him to the hospital, and obviously he was still dead when they got there.
Mm-hmm.
She took him to Plains Memorial Hospital in Dimmitt, Texas. They said the cause of death was a fatal blood infection. I read in another article that once they went back and looked at these deaths closer, there was no evidence of any blood infection. And it's super fucking weird because you'd think if it was like one doctor that kept making mistakes or trying to hide something.
Mm-hmm.
But these are all different doctors in different places.
Yeah.
Different medical examiners, and she's just skating through. So
She must have had some knowledge of the medical system.
I don't think so. I mean, she was at school.
Just got lucky
she
or whatever.
dropped out of school at 13, and you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it's true.
so.
It's just too... I don't know. It's like too professional. It seems like that she would get away with all of this, you know? It seems like she's obviously knowing what she's doing.
Well, it seems like if you don't want any fucking kids, stop having them. Like, I don't understand that part.
Well, yeah.
Is it just to have somebody to kill?
That's what it sounds like.
I don't know. It's fucking bizarre either way.
Mm-hmm.
So at 27 years old, on February 21st of 86, she gives birth to Jose Antonio Lumbrera in Garden City, Kansas. It didn't name his father, at least in like the 3 articles I looked at.
Okay. So this is what, kid 7 or something?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's February 21st of 86. Now this is where it gets real fucking confusing.
Okay.
Like 6 different articles. Several of them are from reputable newspapers.
Okay.
Like newspaper clippings. It's not just like a written out thing.
Mm-hmm.
Half of them say that he was 4 years old when he died.
Mm-hmm.
Half of them say that he was 2.5 months old when he died.
Weird.
Half of them say that he died at her home.
Yeah.
And that he was suffocated. The other half say that he was alive when he got to the hospital. They resuscitated him. They got him in good health. He was in the hospital for several days. And that he died after his mother snuck into his hospital room and suffocated him there.
Wow.
And nurses caught her running out of the room. And another nurse had said she'd seen her like hovering over the crib and jumped back whenever somebody came in the room. Mm-hmm. I don't know if any of that shit's true. Yeah. Because there's so many different articles, especially on that death.
It's weird that there's like so much conflicting medical information. You know what I mean? It's one thing if like different people have different stories, but when it's medical professionals, that makes me wonder a lot. Yeah, brings up a lot of questions, more than it does answers.
Yeah, it was so confusing. So I got to this part and I was like, those are big ass differences. Mm-hmm. He either died at 2.5 months old or he died at 4 years old, and he either died at the hospital several days later or he died at home and nobody knows what happened.
Or she got caught or she didn't. Like, what?
Yeah, I could not find definitive information on that.
Yeah.
But thank you, Jesus.
She done got.
Little baby Jesus. This one was the one that did it for her.
Glad it wasn't baby Jesus.
Right. Yeah. I mean, shit.
So, child number 7.
He dies of asphyxia due to smothering. Mm-hmm. So, she was arrested in Kansas for the murder of her son, Jose Antonio Lumbrera. Mm-hmm. They had the preliminary hearing in Kansas, and she was convicted for his death. So after she was found guilty of his death, she was given life in prison without the possibility of parole for 15 years.
Okay.
Once she got arrested for that and started doing time for that crime, they started opening up the other deaths of their children in 3 different cities in Texas. She was found guilty of the murder in the first degree for Melissa, Melinda, and Daniel. And this shit weirds me out.
Okay.
She pled guilty to murdering Melissa, but the other 2 charges on the other 2 children were dropped completely. Why? I don't know. It doesn't make sense.
I don't know. I've seen all sorts of crazy legal shit that comes of this, you know.
She did time in Kansas, and then they released her to Texas to start doing time there for the other murder.
Okay.
I never really considered that as an option. You know what I mean?
Why? Whatever.
Yeah. So she was released from the Kansas prison and began serving time in Mountain View unit of Texas prison. She was 45 years old when she moved to the Texas prison.
Okay.
And she still, as of 2012, was serving time, and I believe still is now serving time.
So she got life in Texas too. Then she got life in Kansas, and then life in Texas. I imagine. I'm surprised she didn't get death.
Well, that's not where it stopped. Like, she had more trials. So, in Castro, Texas, she was charged with the death of Luis, one of her other sons, and she pled no contest to that. She moved to the Texas prison in 2004, and she's still in prison, so I imagine she probably got life in prison.
Yeah.
I imagine she probably got life in prison for that.
Yeah.
So, all of her children's deaths were attributed to natural causes from the beginning by doctors. Mm-hmm. Now, as they buried her children, every single one of these kids, she stomped and cried and sobbed and screamed and begged God to give them back and da-da-da-da. Mm-hmm. Made a huge scene at the freaking grave sites, which is a lot of grave sites.
Yeah, no kidding.
And she actually blamed the deaths of her children on a curse that her mother-in-law put on her, which I believe it was Lionel's mother.
Okay.
She and her sister both attest to this, that Lionel's mother pointed at her and said, all of your children are going to die at their mother's hands. And she was like she believed in this stuff. You know what I mean? Like,
wow.
So, my thinking is that she killed her fucking kids just to prove that witchcraft is real. You know what I mean? At this point, it wasn't like it was an omen. You know what I mean?
Of course, yeah.
It was like she followed through with it just so she could have somebody to blame. So, you know what I mean? Like, that's goofy. The authorities never suspected anything with these deaths, obviously, because they were all over the place. There was nothing that stood out in their...
Yeah, and the law enforcement didn't really talk to each other back then, especially about stuff that a doctor rules accidental. You know what I mean?
Exactly, yeah.
They got other people like McDuff running around, you know what I mean? They're like, well, this guy's fucking, choking people out with brooms or whatever.
Right. So there were no red flags with this, and she moved around so much that they never even looked at it twice. You know what I mean? So like when she took a kid to a hospital and it died, and then the coroner was like, this is how it died, I guess they never really saw any reason to go any further into her history and see, oh, well, 4 others did too, so that sucks.
Yeah.
And plus they all didn't
because that would have been an immediate investigation.
Right. And they didn't really want to believe that a mother was capable of doing that. So they kind of were like...
Same thing with Nurse Vicki.
Right.
They were
Yeah.
like, I think some people were like, nah, but not her. There's no way.
Yeah.
Not in this town.
They were just kind of like, there must be some other explanation. And so
Must be a family, like, you know, yeah.
the way it was explained was like, they didn't purposely look over these deaths or, you know, overlook the causes or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
They listed things like, and the way it was explained was like, they listed like heart failure.
Mm-hmm.
This one died of heart failure. And the detective on the case is like, everybody dies from heart failure once your heart stops. You know, you have heart damage,
Yeah.
you know, lung damage. Like, if you go into there thinking this is probably congenital heart disease, and then you look at the heart and it has damage because the heart stopped pumping.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, it's just vague, and they didn't expect there was any foul play, so they just said she died of heart failure. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like they were trying to commit
The cause of
fraud.
death was no longer living.
Exactly.
Okay.
Um.
Got that. Got it, Doc.
Now, Lionel came back in court and said, like, I kind of had a feeling some shit was going down, like, and I think that's why he skedaddled, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, of course.
he said that one morning he was up playing with one of his kids, and the kid was happy and healthy and alert and fine. He said he left to go to work, and after he'd been at work for 30 minutes, somebody called and said, like, your kid died. Like,
Yeah.
he was like, I was with him an hour ago, he was fine, like, what's going on? I'm not sure which kid that was. It was just like a...
One of several.
Yeah. He really wanted to know. He's like, I just need to know if she killed my kids. You know what I mean?
Of course. Yeah.
Um,
I can't even imagine.
Yeah. It's fucking crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So Diana's family, they all support her.
Still.
Oh, yeah. So a bunch of them are like, all about the witchcraft part.
Yeah.
And she was cursed. And like, it's bad luck. And this isn't her fault. And I witnessed her curse, you know, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then her cousin's like, he was quoted saying, you think this would happen if Diana was white? Absolutely not. No way. This is her cousin.
Yeah, it would, first of all.
Well, that's kind of my
Anybody
thinking.
with 7 dead kids, I don't care if you're purple, black, white, yellow, brown, you're done.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was like, really? That's an interesting time to...
Yeah, we got dead children. Let's not bring race into it. You know what I mean? That's ridiculous.
This is a guy ahead of his time.
Uh-huh. Yeah, right?
But, I mean, yeah, that's pretty... He said nobody would have questioned her if she'd been Caucasian. And I'm like...
I would have. He's like, oh, you have 7 kids? How many of them died? 7? Well, let's ask some questions.
We have a conversation to have.
Yeah, seriously.
But yeah, the rest of her family, they're not suspicious at all. They don't think she had anything to do with it. They think it was a curse. They think it was bad luck. They think that it was natural. They think it was... Even some of them said that she had some kind of illness as a child, and they think maybe they had the illness.
That's what I was thinking. You know, they could easily pass that off as like something with genetics or whatever, right?
Yeah, but the illness they were using was something that didn't make any fucking sense, like polio or some shit. Like,
Okay, well, yeah.
that's... If they had polio, you'd know about it.
Got to get your ducks in a row, yeah.
This creeped me out so bad, and I don't know why. But all of her kids' headstones in the same cemetery, all next to each other, these really big, grand, beautiful headstones, all say the same thing on them. Darling, we miss thee. That gives me the
That's
fucking creeps.
weird.
Right?
That's weird.
Okay, I'm not the only one.
No,
I thought
that's
that was
creepy.
so fucking creepy. Like, can you imagine walking in there and seeing 7 headstones and they all say, "Darling, we miss thee"?
Nah.
Like, what? She didn't even have the time to, like, she was too busy trying to kill other kids to, like,
She had
come
a
up with
process.
something.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
It's like she, like, collector's items or something.
Jesus.
Super fucking weird.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. It's all over the place. It's really a mess. But yeah, so Diana, Bruja, Lumbrera, all those A's. She's still in prison, and she's gonna be there a minute.
It's crazy how both of our stories are like, doctors are like, yeah, it's not weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a lot of, we kind of run into that sometimes where
Doctors and police.
where, I mean, and females they can get away with murder a lot easier, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody suspects them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make sense to anybody.
But if you're killing your kids, I feel like that would be...
That's a shit ton of kids to kill.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just like that's an excess. Like, you know what I mean?
That's an excessive amount of children to kill.
Yeah. I mean, if she had 7 kids and killed 4 of them or 2 of them or...
It wouldn't have been as suspicious.
Even 5 of them, it'd have been like, that sucks.
Well, she likes those 2. That couldn't have been that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's weird.
Jeez,
like,
that's disturbing as hell.
She killed some of them, like, and they were 2 months old, and then she waited till the others, like, some were 3 years old, you know? Like, it's like, that must have been a really fucking good kid. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He must have been, like, the best kid. But he still didn't make it past, like, to kindergarten. None of them made it to kindergarten.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's really disturbing, and I don't believe her witchcraft bullshit, and I don't believe that anybody has that kind of luck. And like, maybe in the fucking 1840s, but not
right.
You know what I mean? Like when you had 36 kids and maybe 9 of them survived to be 40 years old. You know, not in the freaking 80s and 70s. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So maybe they can be pen pals with each other and
who
bond
knows
over how shitty people they are.
Well, I started thinking, like, were the doctors involved? Was like, you know.
I thought that too. I was like, how the fuck?
Is she, like, paying off? You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know.
No, it was just like, they worded it. They were very generic about it. They're like, oh, a small child died. SIDS, whatever, you know? Like, her heart stopped, or he had an illness, or aspirated. Well, all those things can... If you fucking suffocate a child and then it throws up in the process, it's going to aspirate on its vomit that... Yeah. It'll look like something else. You know, it's possible that it could look different.
That's crazy.
And I would say that she was not unlucky. She was actually, on the contrary, very lucky that she got away with it as long as she did, because she didn't do anything special. It was just circumstances. Like,
yeah. She was lucky to get away with it for so long.
Yep. She looks like
mine too. Mine wasn't very long, but I couldn't believe after, if 2 people died within 20 minutes of each other. Like that would have been it. You know what I mean?
She killed somebody in front of her husband, in front of his wife or whatever. Like, that's... it makes me sick because I can almost see her like giggling to herself. Like,
she would walk up to the other nurses, then RNs, and very calmly she would be like, "You should go in room 4. He's slumped over."
For real?
That's a quote. Yeah.
No shit. What the fuck? She was the best nurse, and she was like, "You need to go take care of that guy."
Well, she wasn't an RN. She was an LVN, so she had to go get someone. But she was, like, way too calm about it. Looking back on it, they were like, what? You know?
I just can't believe that any of this shit went on as long as it did.
Yeah.
Like, literally, these are 2 of the most blatant serial killers. Like, didn't give 2 shits.
Ridiculous.
Mine was just killing her fucking kids. Like she was taking out the trash. Like, she didn't give a shit.
Right.
And I don't even know how she got pregnant as many times as she did. You'd think there'd be some kind of, like, I don't even know.
Guilt, remorse,
something. Stress. Like, stress can prevent... She didn't feel shit. Like, literally. And yours was just, like, popping from room to room like the fucking tooth fairy, just taking people out like nothing. Like, what?
Yeah, she was. It was insane. It was insane.
I guess there is something to say about not having a motive.
Well... Interesting stories. Regardless, that's episode 18 for us, right? We have Diana.
That one was hard on me. Diana Lumbrera,
and Vicki. Dawn. What was her last name? Smith? I don't know. Jackson. Whatever.
You know.
Yeah. No, I'm glad that they did wind up in jail, but Jesus Christ. And pretty interesting opening for our first 2 females. I think that's pretty incredible.
Yep, they were pretty shitty human beings.
I would agree.
I guess.
All right, well, that is it for episode 18. Please join us next week for another episode 19. Approaching 20 pretty quick here. Find us on social media. Find us on our website, wherever you get your podcasts at. Still looking at releasing premium content coming up, and we love you guys so much.
Take it easy, weirdos.
Peace.